of so many of the disciplines and work ethics that I learned under Dr. Menghini. But nearly 27 years after I became his student, what's probably most clear to me is how clearly his passion for music resounded throughout everything he did. It began and ended with music. And he was really good at the trench work of teaching, the roll up your sleeves, help them understand what the hell you're talking about kind of teaching. He was and is, as many of you know, I'm sure, a masterful extemporaneous speaker, and to this day amazes me with his ability to communicate a concept. I'll give you an example. I'm curious, Mr. M, if you recall this. During a wind ensemble rehearsal, Mr. M was becoming very frustrated with the saxophones for not handing a delicate passage off to the flutes and clarinets. We just didn't get it as an ensemble, and of course not. You know, high school kids, we had no frame of reference. What do high school kids know about finesse and tenderness, right? Mr. M finally put his baton down, and he eloquently implored us to be sensitive. Pretend you're holding something really breakable in your hands, he said, really delicate glass. And saxophones, you're going to carry it over to the woodwinds and hand it over. And you don't want it to break. It worked. Even a drummer like me in the back of the room could hear the kinder, gentler handoff of the passage the next time we rehearsed it. It became more legato and seamless. To this day, when I play ballads, I think of that analogy. A final story about Mr. M. Not long after I graduated from high school, I was working with him teaching a band camp in a little valley in the midst of the beautiful Jemez Mountains of New Mexico. This band needed his help. Not everyone knew which end of the horn to blow in, and I thought Mr. M was going to have an aneurysm trying to get the band to hustle back to their positions at the end of rehearsing a segment of the drill. I recall distinctly when his exasperation had arrived. Now keep in mind, there is a difference between frustration and exasperation. Frustration is when you keep yelling. Exasperation is when you can't think of anything else to yell. And indeed, suddenly the bullhorn went quiet. And Mr. M stopped talking to the kids and spoke to me in as much of a whisper as a bullhorn will allow. He looked up out of the valley and said, "Aren't those mountains beautiful, John?" I said, "Yes, they are, Mr. Menghini." For the rest of that week, whenever we hit the wall with the band, we'd ask each other, "Aren't those mountains beautiful?" I'm not naive. It's easy for me to stand here and talk about beauty. But I come from a family of educators, so I think I understand. My dad was a teacher and a guidance counselor for 35 years. My brother is a career history teacher. One of my 3 sisters was an elementary art educator. Another has taught advanced mathematics at a private school for gifted students. I know about teacher burnout because I see it when it comes home. I know that eventually when that bell rings, you want to rip it from the wall. I know that there are times when you want to show a kid an anatomically impossible way to play their instrument. I know you may be sick of variations on a Korean folk song, even though I still recall how fun it was to play the temple block part. I know that sometimes in the midst of everything, you eventually get to that point where you lower the bullhorn, or the baton, or the score, and look skyward to say to yourself, "Aren't those mountains beautiful?" When that happens, remember, what you do does matter. In the documentary I mentioned a moment ago, Music from the Inside Out, a member of the Philadelphia Orchestra speaks about what it takes to persevere in a career as a professional musician. But he might as well have been talking about a career in music education. It's a living art, he said. It's not drudgery. You have to remember what it was about music that drew you in the first place, and that's your strongest ally and your best friend in this profession. That impulse, that feeling. And you have to hang on to it as long as you can. He's so right. You know, it's so easy to complicate our own lives. Trust me, I know. Careers and passions are like bright, clean, and empty rooms we walk into with excitement on moving day, then clutter and complicate over time. And just like a familiar room, we eventually stop seeing them. We simply live within them. So humor me for a moment. Close your eyes. Picture the room of your career as a music educator and start moving things out. Strip away the clutter of appoggiaturas and hemiolas. Sweep out song form, modes, circle of fifths. Move out the scales and sweep away figured bass and metric modulation. Oh, and definitely move out faculty meetings, grade cards, state contests, instrument repairs, and fundraising. And before you move in all the new wonderful and necessary things you've acquired here at VanderCook into that room, the rehearsal management this and the conducting technique that. Look into that first empty room of space and promise when all there was simply music itself. Pure sounds, pure joy, that for some reason crawled up your spine and stomped on the accelerator of your heart. That's why what you do matters, because nothing else feels this good. And the world needs moments where we don't say, what good is this? But only, how good this is. A couple of weeks ago, I was walking on the Upper West Side of New York near Lincoln Center, and in the distance I heard a salsa band playing. I could make out the knife-like staccato of the brass, the primal slapping of the congas, and finally that irresistible displaced beat of the bass. I joined the crowd on the square and stood listening, then swaying, then clapping my hands along with the music, just like the hundreds of dancing, smiling people around me. And it occurred to me, this is the best part of my day. And thanks to unknown music teachers who inspired and encouraged and taught those blazing musicians, I think was probably the best part of everyone's day who was gathered there. Indeed, it has been moments like that that have made up the best parts of my entire life. May each of you be remembered with as many choked back tears of appreciation and affection as I remember my own music teachers, starting all the way back on May 27, 1972. And may you always recall that you are a part of one of the very, very best things in life. Thank you and congratulations.